All right. All right, everybody. We're back. We have figured it out. Drew is here. He's representing Snowpack. He'll be our last maintainer here to teach us all the wonders of open sauce. I just want to give a shout out to you as well, Demetrius, Team Breezy, and Tom as well, Mark, for Richie, all for the follows of the channel too as well. I didn't mention, I probably should have did this before I jumped in live with Drew, but yeah, I do stream on this channel on a regular basis, so feel free to hit this follow if you want to get notifications when I do live coding. All right, so now that that's out of the way, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, what project you work on.
Yeah, my name is Drew. I am I guess I've mostly been a front-end developer for most of my career, mostly JavaScript, HTML, CSS, y'all know the drill. And lately I have started working full-time on Snowpack, which is an open source repo that we're going to talk about, and also Skypack, which is kind of more of like a community tool / future business that we're building.
I'm actually looking forward to talking about Skypack too as well, if you have time to mention that, because I chatted with Fred a couple months ago, and I think it was still early times for Snowpack, Pika package, Skypack. But could you give us some, I guess, some, actually, let me find you real quick. Oh, there you are. Yeah, so give us a sort of like a roundabout, like what is Snowpack, and then how does it sort of collate with Skypack?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Skypack connection, I think I'll kind of spend more time on. Like, is it okay if I kind of like combine the like what Snowpack does along with like how I got involved with it? Because I see those two stories as
yeah, you know, actually, let's zoom back and like I guess reverse a bit and yeah, talk about how you sort of got involved with the project itself. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, I was working at a startup. I was actually in Salt Lake City for React Rally in what year would this be? 2018. So I was like enjoying the talks, enjoying the conference, you know, just the whole back when conferences existed. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember like going home for the conference, and I was just really stoked to just like, you know, I had all these ideas floating around from all the brilliant speakers, and I sat down to write a React component. And I just got so frustrated with like the setup of React, you know, because you need like a bundler, you need Babel, you need this. If you're adding TypeScript, it's like, do you use the Babel compiler? Do you use the TypeScript compiler? And like I'm really comfortable with Webpack. Like I've written like Webpack plugins. Like I'm really good at the setup, and like I just had this realization, like if I'm frustrated with it and I have a lot of experience with it, like what are other people going through? It's like, what are the people in the boot camps going through? And it's just kind of like, I know it's popular to talk about the complexity of JavaScript, and I don't like piling on the bandwagon of like, I think we're doing amazing things, and we're breaking new territory. So I'm not one to say that like complexity is bad, but I was just kind of took a step back and like, yeah, this DX could get a little better. And so I started on my own open source project to kind of like make it. I didn't like intend to write a bundler, but I actually kind of started writing a bundler that like made this easier. And it was based around this idea that like, this is kind of like a separate conversation. I'll get like the short version of it. ES modules is the term that we talk about a lot with Snowpack, and it's really at the core of everything. And when you get into it, it's like very niche, very kind of complicated. But like all you need to understand is that it really changes and simplifies how you write JavaScript. And so like I wrote a bundle around that, and I kind of got blocked like the ecosystem of like, you know, all of NPM that we want to use, even React, it's built in this old world node code, you know? So I'm like, I don't know how to solve that. And then fast forward about like 6 months, and I saw that, I came across Fred Schott's work, who had like been tackling the same problem, and he'd been working on it like in another sphere from me, but he got further with the ecosystem. And so that's when I ran across like the Pika CDN, which like was easier to load packages. I ran across Pika Web, and Pika Web would be renamed Snowpack. And that was, like what I had been wanting for a really long time. And so I immediately jumped on board, started contributing, and Fred was like really welcome to contributions. I took all the ideas that I had and I just brought them into Pika Web. So like the automatic code scanning and stuff, like I wrote the first version of that. And since then people have written better versions of it, so I was just kind of like two people having like separate ideas. I think Fred had a lot more patience and resilience than I did. I think I gave up a little bit too quickly. So it was just like, just kind of seeing like the spark of like, oh my gosh, like someone's solving the same problem as me. And that's like open source. So like, Pika Web, which was renamed to Snowpack, kind of like a play on like NoPack. It's just this idea that like, you can get started with a project really, really simply in a way that has only been possible just because of VS modules, because the actual like underpinning of like the JavaScript language has changed. And so because of the spec changes and everything, like we can create a simpler build tool than, back when all these like, like what Webpack and Node.js build tools were built. Hopefully that kind of like answered the question in a roundabout way.
Yeah. And hopefully folks, they have a bit of experience in JavaScript, because like, I think the whole transition to ES modules and like the new features that are shipping, like it's a thing that I've seen happen a lot. Like, so my introduction to JavaScript was 0.11. And around that time, I remember of it because, well, it was the first version I actually had to install for Node. Sorry, my introduction to Node, which is server-side JavaScript, was 0.11. And around that time, it was the split between IO.js and Node.js. So people, if you were around, you remember that. But basically what happened was they were trying to implement new features into the JavaScript language. Things like ES6, all the stuff we have today in the JavaScript language didn't exist. And I think it's a constant cycle of people trying to advance the language, but making sure it's not going to break it for, everybody else that needs to use JavaScript. Like in this here, I'm using JavaScript just to even do like that animation where you just saw the person who followed me last. Like that is all JavaScript, and to have that work not just in the browser, but also work inside of a native Windows client to stream to Twitch. It's pretty amazing. And there's like a lot of work that goes into that. And so yeah, it was nice to hear the sort of your introduction into this project, which I wonder how similar it is for other folks. And apologies on the captions. I did see that. I will, during the break, I'll see if I can get that to like give it a restart in a moment. But yeah, what I'm getting at is you started working on a project and you saw someone else working on a project. So is that common in open source to like, you think you have the next greatest idea and it turns out it's the same idea?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. I think a lot of us have that experience if we've, released enough open source. Because like oftentimes I think like it's, like I think if we're really honest with ourselves, like most of us, at least not me, some of you out there are just not that smart. It's like I'm not like the best developer. I'm not like the brightest. I don't have all the good ideas. Like, but like, collaborating is like where like I think like the real like strength in humans are. It's like we're very social, collaborative creatures. That's when we do our best work, honestly, So yeah, like I think a lot of times it does take putting something out there, but maybe the version that you put out there isn't the final version. Maybe you combine with someone else, or maybe you put out there and then that's been the jump that someone else needs to combine with you. It's like Fred putting all that out there was like, that was the spark that, I saw that I'm like, oh, that's what I want to contribute to. So yeah, it's really common to share ideas with people, but yeah, just put it out there in the world and also combine efforts when you can.
Excellent. And sorry, I am looking at the trying to get the captions to work, but there was a question that actually came in. I'm not sure if you have the chat open as well.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so difference between Snowpack, Webpack, Parcel. On that spectrum, like, I guess, when would someone use Snowpack or why, basically, compared to like Webpack and Parcel?
Yeah, and I will say that like they serve a really similar purpose, but like the timing of when they came out is like the key differentiator. Like Snowpack is newer. It's like, but like why does that make a difference? Well, again, because like the language changed. The way that Webpack works, like when I say ES modules, like we've actually been writing ES modules for years now, like import React from React. Like when we're writing front end code and all these like frameworks, we're used to that import statement, that import export. Like that's ES modules. But what Webpack did, because it was built in a time when that didn't exist, when that wasn't a standard, it was just a proposal. Webpack strips all of that away. So browsers can actually understand that now. You actually don't need a bundler to write import export now, but you used to back when Webpack was built. So Webpack strips all that away, and then it turns it into its own like proprietary kind of system. So Webpack works in really old browsers. So if you need old browser support, Webpack is still awesome. I think it's the best tool if you need like wider support. But if you only need to ship code to modern browsers, you can actually shed not only build times, but you can possibly shed a little bit of weight. You can also let the browser perform more optimizations if you use Snowpack, because Snowpack is the only build tool that ships ES modules straight to the browser. So basically, what Snowpack does is, writing import React from React, that doesn't work in a browser because a browser doesn't know where React is. And so Snowpack gets that bridge between you shipping ES modules to the browser, basically like one-to-one what you're actually writing. So your code in production is more like what you wrote in your editor. But Snowpack is that bridge to NPM where you get access to all of NPM, basically.
Yeah, excellent. And I think I guess what I got from that is like the simplicity. So I think when I first started using Webpack, which was pretty early on in the beginning, and I had to learn a lot of stuff to make it work. But nowadays, like we can kind of benefit on, just like you saw something that Fred was already making something very similar to you. Like we can benefit on moving forward and start working on stuff that hasn't been solved already, and work on things that maybe start to advance, not the society, the ecosystem, I guess is the term I'm looking for. Advance the ecosystem by moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And like to give a little bit more distinction, like, Webpack takes the like approach. Webpack and Parcel are kind of philosophically different. Webpack is the like, you can do absolutely anything your imagination dreams of if you just learn how to configure it. And Webpack is a brilliant piece of engineering. Like there's no doubt that Webpack moved the web forward. I would say like for a lot of projects, Webpack it's more mature, it's more stable, it's a better start for a lot of people. Parcel is trying to simplify some of the Webpack configuration, but you just can't do as much as Parcel. So I recommend people to try out Webpack if they can bite down and handle the config. But Snowpack is kind of just like this future vision of like, how could we simplify it? We've seen a lot of adoption of Snowpack. Again, it's for modern browsers. So you can't support old IE on Snowpack. Snowpack's just kind of our vision of like, what does the next generation build tool look like? And we're quickly filling in the gaps, and we've been hearing a lot of great stories from people. We've been getting a lot of good feedback. So right now we're focused on making it, it's slowly stabilizing. And now we're moving into like being able to like replicate a lot of the functionality that we saw with Webpack. But you're still kind of making a bet on the future with Snowpack.
Yeah. Yeah, and what are you seeing as far as adoption on the project? Well, I guess we can, not really the best way to see adoption, which is GitHub stars, but you can see activity as a way. So I imagine you have some folks who are in the mix as far as contribution goes. But I'm curious, like adoption for people leveraging Snowpack, probably in like tutorials. What do you see for that?
Yeah, we've, just for the people that reached out, and, if you don't reach out, we don't know how you're using it. We'd love to hear how you're using it. But we've seen a lot of, obviously a lot of like pet projects, developer blogs, experiments, that sort of stuff. That is in heavy usage right now. We have seen a few companies, I think like Alibaba, threw up like a mini site with Snowpack. So we're actually starting to see bigger enterprisey things doing smaller experiments with it. So that's really exciting to kind of like, tip that scale.
Very cool. Yeah. And so speaking of like toy projects, pet projects, I just got done showing off my Git Twitch integration, where I've got stars that sort of manage whenever you star a repo. So perhaps, actually I have a repo here. So whenever you start this repo, I have an integration that shows up on Twitch. So I'd mention the beauty of being able to have something as simple as getting Snowpack to run stuff and pipe that into a local Windows client, which is OBS, and have integrations or a browser source happen that way. So the thing that powers this is called Slaybot. So this is the one I have in production right now. And I didn't do quite a bit of testing on this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and star my own repo, and I'm going to see if this works. And it didn't. Luckily, I have it in localhost. But what I'm getting at is I actually have, it's not running. There we go. So I guess what I'm getting at is I have Snowpack running for Slaybot. And the way I ran this, all I did was install it locally. I've got Snowpack dev running. What's cool is I do a lot of like just basic JavaScript. Let's just have this run. I do some basic JavaScript stuff to get this to work, mainly because I do a lot of training and teaching and tutorials, and I don't want to. What happens with like things like Webpack, which is Webpack's it's a very powerful tool, but when you use tools and things in training, you spend a lot of time teaching Webpack and not teaching how to write JavaScript. Which is why I tend to opt for things like Snowpack within my code. So I've got some JavaScript files that I want to just show up on the screen. And then I've got a login button, which I think this is why it's not working. It's because I have to log in through my API. So I do have this routed directly into OBS right now. So what's going to happen here is I now have a login button. Oh, I'm already logged in. So it just logged me in because I do have cookies. So I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of deleting cookies and showing how login works. But now I'm logged in. With that being said, now this should work. And let's see if this works. If not, we can move on and talk more about Snowpack.
Yeah, I can also try starring it too.
This was going to be a great example. I promise you.
What is your GitHub profile name again?
Bduggy. Yeah, it should be open sourced. I assure you, I tested this locally and it worked. But, with all demos.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't see it on your profile. Are you sure it's public?
Oh, you know what? It's open source Slaybot.
Oh, open source. Oh, got it.
But the way this is going to work is that the live demo gods are angry. They are angry. We spent too much time showing demos today, and now they've had enough.
No.
Well, in the meantime, Green Sen one, who's coming in hot with some really good questions. I guess it's more of a statement, but yeah, Webpack is the go-to for building front end. I wish for a lighter alternative, and haven't heard about the, Snowpack. So, yeah. In the analogy, Webpack is a tank you bring in a duel. I think a lot of people agree on this, but there aren't any good swords that are open source, so that's what everybody's bringing to the duels.
Yeah, I think Snowpack is definitely worth a shot. I didn't really sell this earlier, but one thing is speed. I mean, the way that Fred's engineered it has been very, very, very speed conscious. Like we use like ESBuild, which is a Go based JavaScript builder. So like Babel's written in Node.js. When it comes to processing a lot of JavaScript, JavaScript isn't always the fastest. So we use a lot of like WebAssembly type stuff when possible. The build times we see with Snowpack are like orders of magnitude faster than Webpack and Parcel, even for really big sites, because we're doing a lot less. So with that simplicity comes a lot of speed. The dev server, basically the only time that the dev server takes is just that download and install, and then we have to prepare npm packages to be used for the front end. So then once you pay that initial cost, the dev server has instant starts, hot module reloading, so you can see changes instantly in your browser. Very lightweight, very fast. I saw someone ask, how is it with CI/CD? It works great. Like we we ship a lot of stuff in production with Snowpack.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And I just love that it does mostly what I needed to do and then gets out of the way. Like there's not a lot of configuration that's needed when I throw together a thing like Slaybot, which if anybody wants to, my failure at flexing, you're more than welcome to drop in a flex, which I'll just drop this in now because so this is the normal Slaybot, but I had it integrated just for stars receiving, which I walked through just previously how I did that with Hopscotch and was able to receive webhooks. But yeah, what I'm getting at is like being able to have this work with low to little effort. And then what I can do now is I can actually write better JavaScript because I can focus on that rather than trying to get my CI and CD and my build tools working. I do see I envision a future where you sort of have you heard of Blitzjs? Have you seen that project?
Blitzjs? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so Blitzjs is Brandon is someone who I've chatted with a bit actually on streams and my podcast, but it's a React framework, full stack React framework. It's built on top of thanks for the follow, Wingmat. It's built on top of React. It's built on top of Next.js actually, which is the weirder part because Next.js is a framework on top of React, but it gives you Ruby on Rails-esque type flavor, scaffolding as well. But what I like about it is by default, it gives you stuff like Prisma. So you don't have to know about Prisma, but you have a database ready to go. Cool. You don't have to worry about build tools. I'm not sure what they're using for the build tool, if it's a Webpack or not, but what I'm getting at is you don't have to know how it's built. You just need to know where to put your copy and where to put your code, and then make your site work. And I think this is the future that we're sort of looking towards when it comes to front-end JavaScript frameworks. Is I think it's cool that we can all build our own frameworks and build our own tools and even build our own bundlers. But when I don't have to build my bundle anymore and I can just it works when I start with the Blitz command or a Blitz recipe, I think this is hands down pretty killer, especially if you're working at agencies or if you're working at a company that you have to ship quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is kind of getting into the Drew's opinions corner, but it's kind of a cliche answer, but it's different problems. There are a lot of CSS frameworks that are really great for getting stuff out the door and is one-offs, and they're horrible for managing at scale. Likewise, the stuff that's built for scale, it really sucks to just do a quick page that you're only going to spend a couple hours on. So with a lot of this stuff, it's there's a use case that it just kills it. But I think it's really tough to find a tool or something that's universal across applications, from agencies to startups to core products. I think the distinction isn't clear sometimes, which is also really difficult for beginners not being able to figure that part out.
Yeah, which is very true, and I appreciate your opinions. Opinions are welcomed. I think we're all here to learn. So did you want to mention Skypack and sort of this how it fits within the umbrella?
Yeah. So Skypack is kind of just a renaming of the Pika CDN. And a lot of people have asked us about, what is Pika? What is the future of Pika? Fred is kind of the first to say Pika was just this umbrella that was more this experimentation on just the Pika project was just more this thing that was where all these experiments what the future of web and web development could look like, So the Pika CDN's been up. It was really successful, loaded a lot of packages, but it kind of plays off this really interesting idea that, we're all familiar with the CDN. We've all loaded stuff from unpackaged JS deliver, right? But when you get into your Webpack or your bundler framework, how do I load, how can I load import React from remote URL, or what if I want to load a JavaScript module from the internet? It's what if we could load, so many sites use React, but whenever I go to a website that has React bundled in, I have to download React on my browser over and over and over and over again, sometimes the same version, right? So I mean, React is a package that is prepared for CDN, but when you get into all of the other like hundreds, I mean, like thousands, tens of thousands of NPM packages we use, like only like a fraction of a percentage are actually like prepared for use in a CDN, you know, and we can't use a CDN in our build tool. So the Pika CDN turning into Skypack is this idea of like, what if we could load from a bundler? What if we could import React from, you know, Skypack/React? So that's a URL where if multiple sites are using React, the user only has to download it once. And so it's kind of like this future idea of what CDNs are. There's no NPM installs. You just hit a URL and it's good to go. And also we can do some really cool stuff because it's hosted online. Like we can actually do automatic browser transpilation. So if you have an older browser, we can now automatically add the polyfills if needed because we have access to that because you're hitting a CDN. So that's something that we haven't seen another CDN do. And so we're really excited about it. So like Skypack is live. We had a soft launch earlier this year at ES Next Conf, which you spoke at. And since then, we've been working on just package support because we have to do a lot of work to translate a lot of really old NPM packages into like new browsers because this stuff was written not to run in a browser. This stuff was written for a bundler. So we've been spending a lot of time just increasing the percentage of packages that work on Skypack. We've been increasing reliability, increasing performance. So it's used for now. It's you can use it now. Skypack.dev. It'll be free to use forever. Yeah, we just wanted to provide like a community tool and a new way to think about JavaScript. Because when you think about loading JavaScript from, you know, loading new style ES modules, JavaScript from a URL, it kind of like breaks your brain a little bit. It kind of challenges what you know about JavaScript of like, oh, I can load all these packages remotely. Like that stat you have pulled up, like 90% of website code is all open source code. It's all NPM. So like, what if we could make the internet like 90% faster by just centralizing that?
Yeah, indeed. And so if I understand this correctly, Skypack, is it similar to Unpackage?
Yeah, it is similar. But what the difference is, Unpackage serves JavaScript directly, like as it's uploaded to NPM, so like no transformations at all. So most of the stuff that's written on NPM cannot run in a browser. Again, like some stuff can, like React is like the really, really, really popular ones can be served from a CDN. But like if you look at like how many packages do we use that don't run on a CDN, it's probably most of the packages that we install. So Skypack does the work of making this browser ready. This is the only tool that I've seen that does that can take something written for Node and make it work in a browser just magically.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. That was my original use case too, as well. Was I was just throwing a bunch of things together, and I wanted to actually take my tool that I built. I forget. Honestly, I forget what the tool was, but I did it live on the stream, so I do know it was something to do with the chat integration. But I went through a bunch of build tools to try to get this thing up and running and then hosted. And I think the one I sort of landed on was Snowpack, and it was like around the time of ES Next Conf. Which it was like top of mind. So yeah, what I'm just gonna say that being able to have all this stuff at my fingertips, and I appreciate everybody at the Pika package team providing all these tools for free too as well.
Yeah, and like a fun little tidbit. So Snowpack, the first version of that turned into what we now call ES install. So ES install is kind of like a sub package of Snowpack now. So ES install, we kind of pulled out that wrapper code. Like it's powered by, it's not all of our invention. Like it's powered by Rollup. It's powered by a lot of the common JS, team. It's powered by a lot of people that have worked on core Node. Like, so these are all like open source concepts. But ES install is kind of a tool that we've kind of brought together all this technology, all these smart thinkers. So you can install ES install, and ES install is what powers Skypack. It's now what runs under the hood of Snowpack. It uses ES build, it uses WASM, so it's really fast, and that's the secret sauce to taking stuff that was written sometimes like for really old Node and getting it to run in a browser.
Yeah.
It does have its limitations. Like, I don't know if we'll be able to support, like, there are packages that like actually read and write from the file system. Like, I know there's a browser thing, but there are some packages that just fundamentally just can't work on the browser. So I don't know what we're going to do about those. But for most of the stuff, it's like, oh, they accidentally left a couple lines of Node. They left require statements. Like, yeah, we actually handle that, no problem.
Really? Wow. That's pretty powerful. Shai, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for your excellent talk too as well. But yeah, honestly, like there's so much to sort of unpack and kind of dig in when it comes to Snowpack, but also Skypack. Like as I start dishing out like new libraries and new tools and just trying to sort of bend JavaScript to my will, it's nice to know that this tool exists for me to get the stuff up and running and shareable in different ways. It'd be interesting to see like other people and their use cases and seeing like stories. I'm curious if are there like any like one-stop shops for getting started with using Skypack or Snowpack, or examples that people can leverage?
Yeah. Skypack's a little bit harder. Like just a little teaser. We're actually we're going to be releasing like a newer catalog, a friendlier site, more docs, and so look forward to some friendlier like onboarding stuff for Skypack very soon.
Okay.
I'm actually really excited about it. But for Snowpack, yeah, there. If you go on the Snowpack repo, which I'm going to look up to make sure I'm not lying, it's definitely on the docs itself. You'll see a mention of Create Snowpack App. It's kind of our version of Create React App. So you'll see a link to that. If you search the docs, you'll see that. So Create Snowpack App is it has templates. We have React TypeScript, Vue. We just added a Vue TypeScript, which I don't think it's on the docs website, but I think it's there. Svelte TypeScript, Preact, even 11T, like all the major frameworks. We're also welcoming new templates, and so these are like one-click installs or single command installs. You just run and it sets you up with a starter project for you to get going. So yeah, I also haven't seen an existing tool that lets you use your JavaScript framework of choice with just like the same bundler running underneath. So yeah, like the templates are great. Please check them out. They take only like a couple seconds to install.
Yeah, so this is actually the Create Snowpack app is a CLI command. Oh, yep, there it is.
Yep. Yeah, it's just copy paste. And for that template, you just type in what front end framework you want to use. And we actually even have a blank one if you don't want to use anything. If you just want to write vanilla JavaScript, like we got you covered there too.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. I'm on a vanilla JavaScript kick right now. Going back to my roots. Not really. Not sure whose roots that would be. But yeah, I'll definitely check it out. And I think it's going to be a nice opportunity for me to clean up the code that was not working earlier in my example. Not sure what happened there. Definitely saw it working, but it's once you go live on stream and people watch, that's when things don't work.
Yeah, it's those live demo gremlins. They always get you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so those Drew UI tip, put a fast button to copy to the clipboard. Copy to clipboard. You're getting some QA right now.
Oh, snap. We do need a copy button. Dang it.
Yeah. There you go. Now you got some work to do.
We have one on the new Skypack website, but we totally need one here. That's a good suggestion. Writing that down right now.
Excellent. If you need some QA help, I'm sure Greenson one can jump in there and mention them on the PR.
Yes. Please start opening up some discussions.
Yeah, and also just going to mention that Drew is going to be in the Discord as well. Snowpack does have a Q&A channel, so if you want to hit up Drew in the Discord, I believe I have got the Discord here, which we can find it. So much going on. There we go. Yeah, it looks like Anthony's already dropped some links and stuff like that too as well with some of the stuff that he was referencing earlier. But yeah, if you have questions and you want to follow through with that feature and the QA, jump into the Snowpack category and ask your questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Drew, appreciate it. Any sort of last tips, wisdoms for contributing to open source?
Just dive in. Like, it can be intimidating. But if you ever feel intimidated, or if anyone is mean to you, they're giant jerks, and it's their problem, not yours. So like, go find a project that is welcoming and open to to new contributors, even if you don't know what you're doing. I promise they're out there. We try to do that for Snowpack. I know like Brian does that. I mean, there are nice open source contributors. So just dive in and find some good projects.
Excellent. Appreciate that. And like, yeah, I stand by that. And sometimes it just takes what I'm trying to do with open source and do with having the Discord and communities, have a safe place for people to say hello and make that connection. Because I think we're really, we learned from Samson, we learned from other folks previously today. It's really making that connection and like having that human interaction and not just sort of hide behind like the codes or the PRs or the issues. And I think that's really where the difference comes in. I've actually gotten so much mentorship in open source just from projects, just by saying hello, connecting to people on Twitter. So also I'll make myself available. If anybody has any questions, feel free to PM me. If you don't want to jump into the scary general channel, feel free to PM me, but also jump into the different channels today and ask your questions on how to get involved in open source.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, see y'all on Discord.
All right, see ya. Thanks, Drew. Excellent. So with that being said, we're now cycling into our community chats, which in a moment, looks like we're actually right up on schedule. In a moment, we're going to have a conversation with the creator of Good First Issues. So if you don't mind, I'm going to